Welcome to Starbound. My name is I Am Duck, and I'll be your narrator today. Nearly 500 supporters get early access to our stories, including brand new episodes of Sunspy Academy and Freyrin and Rimiki. If you'd like to unlock early access and support new episodes and future series, tap join below to become a Starbound member. Now, let's get into today's story. Recruiter Velen's fighter craft screamed through Harvest Colony's atmosphere like a brick wrapped in fire. His upper arms fought the control stick while his lower hands flicked switches and slapped panels, each touch hitting its mark despite 70 hours without sleep. The ship's hull groaned, not the reassuring vibration of controlled descent, but the death rattle of a machine giving up. Through the cracked viewport, he watched wheat fields rush up to meet him. Perfect golden rows, organized and purposeful. Nothing like the chaos currently trying to kill him. The impact threw him forward. Metal shrieked. The world spun, tumbled, and finally stopped with a bone-jarring crunch against something solid. Acrid smoke from burning plastics filled the cabin, seizing his throat. His harness release jammed. Of course it did. Velen fumbled for the manual override, his normally steady hand shaking with exhaustion and the very real possibility of burning alive on a human world. The irony wasn't lost on him. Dying among the one species both sides had agreed to ignore because their biology was incompatible with civilized warfare. The cabin door simply disappeared. One moment it existed, the next, massive human hands had torn it from its reinforced hinges as casually as someone opening a tin of rations. "You all right, Blue Man?" The human's translator rendered the words in flat military standard, but Velen heard the casual concern underneath. The figure hauling him from the wreckage stood 6.5 feet tall, built like someone had decided to make a person out of industrial equipment. "Define... all right," Velen managed, his legs buckling as they hit solid ground. The human, dark skin, slick with sweat, muscles moving under a work shirt like hydraulic cables, actually smiled. Still talking. That's something. More humans arrived. They treated his crash like a routine equipment failure. Not the dramatic culmination of his failed recruitment tour. A young woman with oil-stained hands immediately started arguing with a tall, thin man about salvage rights. The drive course shot, but those inertial dampeners. "UK, he's still on fire!" "Only a little bit." A shorter woman with the solid build of someone who'd spent years wrestling large animals into submission ran a med scanner over Velen's burns. "Stupid Xenos flying stupid alien death traps," she muttered, pulling out burn gel. "Hold still. This is gonna sting like a bastard." It did. The colony's medical center occupied a converted shipping container. Advanced equipment crammed into a space designed for cargo, not care. Velen found himself on an examination table clearly reinforced to handle human weight, and still groaning under his considerably lighter frame. "Fascinating musculature," the colony veterinarian said, studying the scan results. Doc McCoyan moved with the measured calm of someone who'd seen enough biological chaos to find nothing surprising. 4-chambered heart, but the secondary circulation system... is that normal? Perfectly. Velen winced as the man prodded a burn. "Perhaps we could discuss my anatomy after." "Stay still." McCoyan's tone brooked no argument. "Your ship spread itself across 1/2 mile of our best wheat. Least I can do is help you from dying before you explain why." Through the door, Velen could hear the salvage argument escalating. "Power coupling still intact, with some work. It's buried in 3 feet of dirt, Yuki." "So, we got shovels?" Velen closed his larger set of eyes, keeping the smaller, keener pair on the doctor. Time to admit his failure. I'm a military recruiter for the hegemony of skills. My mission parameters required 1,000 fresh recruits for the Tantalus sector peacekeeping action. McCoy's hands never paused in their work. How many did you get? 19. Out of 6 systems, 43 colonies. The words tasted like ash. The peacekeeping action has proven more resource-intensive than projected. It's a meat grinder. This from the woman who pulled him from the wreckage, Rosa Delgado. According to introduction, she leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. Even out here we hear things. Ships going out full, coming back empty, when they come back at all. Valen's lower hands twitched, a nervous tell his species had never quite evolved away. The situation requires additional personnel to maintain stability. Cut the shit. Rosa's voice carried the particular exhaustion of someone who'd heard too many official lies. You're desperate enough to crash land on a human world. That tells us everything. The room filled with colonists. The large one who'd torn his door off, Ben Carter, he'd learnt. The enthusiastic engineer, Yuki Sato. The thin man with the philosophical bent, Pete Novak. 2 young people who looked nearly identical, the Tillerson twins, even young Lisa Park, whom everyone seemed to watch with protective concern. Here's the thing, Ben said, each word carefully measured. Colony needs money. Equipment's failing. Last harvest was thin. Company keeps raising quota, cutting support. The hegemony pays well, Velen offered, seeing an opening. Standard recruit bonuses, hazard pay, death benefits. How much? The number he quoted caused a ripple through the comm. Yuki whistled low. Cal Tillerson mouthed, "Holy shit," to his sister. That's per person, Rosa asked. Standard rate, plus training stipend, equipment allowance, survivor benefits paid to designated recipients. A flurry of raised eyebrows, subtle nods, and sidelong glances passed between the humans. A whole conversation that left Velen completely in the dark. Give us the night, Ben said finally. Town meeting. We'll decide. Velen woke to find 11 humans outside the medical center with packed bags. They'd held their meeting, selected volunteers, those young enough to fight but without critical colony responsibilities. The kind of ruthless practical calculation that would make a hegemony logistics officer weep with joy. This is highly irregular, Velen said, though his relief tasted like salvation. Humans have been classified as unsuitable for modern military operations due to various biological and psychological incompatibilities. Oh, we'll figure it out. Lisa Park, 19 years old, her jaw set and her eyes bright with an earnestness that started or ended wars. You need bodies, we need money. Seems simple. Nothing involving humans is ever simple, Velen muttered in his native tongue. What was that? Yuki asked brightly. I said welcome to the Hegemony Armed Forces. The transport arrived 6 hours later, a battered Corvette that looked like it had already seen the war and wanted no further part of it. Velen watched his 11 recruits board with their pathetically small bags and disturbingly large enthusiasm. Pete Novak paused at the airlock. 68% of your crew stations are running on backup power. Your primary inertial dampener's misaligned. And that smell. Your air recycler's growing something that shouldn't exist outside a laboratory. How could you possibly... I've been teaching chemistry to farm kids for years, with equipment held together by duct tape and last Sunday's prayer. I know failing life support when I smell it. The Corvette's crew, a mix of 3 species who'd clearly given up on military bearing several battles ago, watched the humans with the fascination usually reserved for dangerous animals, which Velen reflected as Cal Tillerson accidentally put his foot through a deck panel that should have supported 3 times his weight. wasn't entirely inaccurate. Training Station Gamma sprawled across 6 square miles of organized suffering. 43 species worth of military tradition distilled into color-coded buildings and regulation-perfect parade grounds. 10,000 fresh recruits moving in perfect synchronization, each species keeping to their designated areas in rigid, synchronized blocks. The humans shattered that order simply by existing. Blood pressure that would cause terminal hemorrhaging in 90% of known sapiens, the medical officer announced, staring at her screen with the expression of someone watching physics laws being violated. Bone density, that's... Is this reading correct? Probably, Rosa said from her third scanning bed, the first who had suffered critical structural failures. Though your machine keeps trying to tell me I'm pregnant, so maybe calibrate for mammals that don't lay eggs. We need specialized equipment, the officer muttered. Possibly industrial. Just stamp us healthy and move on, Tank suggested. We've got training to fail. They didn't fail. The obstacle course, designed to push recruits to exhaustion over 2 hours, took the humans 40 minutes. Tank carried Lisa for the last mile, not because the course had beaten her, but because she'd rolled her ankle laughing at Pete's running commentary on the adorable wall heights. 10 feet, Pete had gasped between strides. My grandmother's garden fence is higher, and she was afraid of rabbits. Marksmanship proved equally problematic. Human eyes tracked moving targets with a predator's focus that made the instructors nervous. Pete set accuracy records while complaining about the toy weapons that felt like they'd snap under real pressure. It's like being asked to shoot with a pool noodle, he told the increasingly frustrated gunnery sergeant. The real catastrophe came with classroom instruction, standardized holographic displays, designed for eyes that perceived light in overlapping fields or for echolocation, left humans squinting at blurred shapes. Yuki spent 3 days jury-rigging human-readable interfaces from spare parts, earning her a formal citation for unauthorized modification of military training equipment, subsection 12J. But it works now, she protested. That's not the point, the administrator explained. You violated procedure. Procedure was stupid. That's definitely not the point. The single ration nutrient cubes, a grayish-brown amalgam of synthesized proteins and minerals, triggered violent biological rejection in all 11 humans. Rose's response entered station legend when she physically carried the quartermaster to the bathroom to demonstrate the full scope of the problem. Fix it, she said, leaving him retching from proximity to human digestive distress. Or I'll be back tomorrow and the day after, and I'll bring friends. Real food appeared the next day. Barracks 7 housed the misfits, Corporal Zek and his hegemony disciplinary cases. Soldiers too valuable to discharge but too difficult to integrate. A handful of Chorus Worlds conscripts, including one drone pilot whose eyes never stopped moving. Various other species whose recruitment stories probably mirrored Velen's desperation. The humans fit right in by not fitting at all. You're doing it wrong, Zek informed Tank. During hand-to-hand combat training, the reptilian soldier moved through the combat forms without a wasted motion, each step and strike exactly as the manual dictated. Tank, who'd learned to fight by fighting, disagreed. 3 seconds later, Zek found himself flat on his back with 260 pounds of human sitting on his chest. Maybe, Tank said, but you're on the ground. This shouldn't be possible. My stance was perfect. My leverage calculations don't work when someone's got 50 pounds and better grab strength than you. Tank helped him up. Want to learn something useful? Within a week, the evening sparring matches drew crowds, different species testing techniques against human stubbornness and finding, more often than not, that stubbornness 1. Melody, the chorus drone pilot, discovered human music through Cal's poorly secured data pad. Her translator rendered her initial response as a flat, "What the fuck is this?" though the musical trill of her actual language made profanity sound like birdsong. "Rock and roll, baby," Cal said, though technically this is more, punk adjacent. "It is chaos. The rhythm patterns violate basic principles of composition. It's..." She paused, her optical organs dilating. "Play it again." Within 3 days, she drafted Kel into teaching her human profanity, which she deployed with devastating effect during flight exercises. "Shit on a brick!" her translator intoned as she pulled 7 Gs in a maneuver that should have torn the wings off. "This crate flies like a pregnant whale." "You can't say that," her hegemony flight instructor protested. "Cassie says I can say whatever helps me not crash. Are you calling Cassie a liar?" The instructor, who'd seen Cassie Tillison punch through a reinforced cockpit window during an emergency egress drill, decided he wasn't. Week 6 brought live fire exercises. The scenario? Defend a supply depot from simulated insurgents using hegemony-approved defensive doctrines. The humans lasted exactly 12 minutes before throwing out the book. "Fixed positions are death traps," Tank announced, hefting a crew-served weapon designed for a 3-person team. "Zach, we're going mobile." "Regulation clearly states." "Regulations written by people who've never been shot at. Move." They turned defense into offense. Tank and Zek established overlapping fields of fire, then displaced before enemy spotters could zero their position. The twins flew their training craft through spaces the manual insisted were too narrow, providing close air support that left the instructor vomiting into a waste bin. "No one can withstand those forces," he gasped between heaves. "Nah," Cassie said, patting his back with enough force to rattle his skeletal plates. "Just gotta know how to slip the draft, like threading a needle, except the needle's trying to kill you and you're going Mach 2. Yuki turned the depot's own systems into weapons. Door locks became traps, environmental controls became area control. The water system developed a suspicious tendency to spray high-pressure jets at anyone wearing opposition markers. "How?" the exercise coordinator demanded. "Everything's connected if you're creative enough." Yuki held up a tangle of wires and circuit boards. "Also, your security measures are older than my grandmother." Pete's sniper team didn't just hit targets. They hit targets that weren't supposed to be in play. Opposition commanders. Civilian observers who'd gotten too close to the action zone. One memorable shot took out a drone operator through a window that regulations assisted didn't have line of sight to any valid position. "Bullets don't read regulations," Pete observed. When the exercise ended, the humans had 0 casualties and had somehow captured the opposition's mobile command post. "It wasn't marked as an objective," the administrator protested. "It was there," Rose explained with exaggerated patience. "Had commanders in it, seemed like leaving it alone would be stupid." The 4-hour after-action review devolved into a heated argument about whether, because it worked, constituted valid tactical doctrine. Advanced training revealed the true gulf between human and galactic standard warfare. Most species had evolved on stable worlds with predictable environments. Their combat doctrine reflected this. Organized, step-by-step civilized. Humans brought the chaos of a death world where everything tried to kill you, and the weather was just another enemy. "Your tactical assessment is to see what happens." Zek stared at the planning document Tank had submitted. "Got a better idea?" "Several, all of them involving actual planning." "Your plans assume the enemy does what you expect." Tank sketched quick adjustments on the glowing map table. "What happens when they don't?" "They will. Combat follows predictable patterns based on everyone following the same playbook. Lisa Park, youngest of the humans but learning fast, pointed to historical battle data. Look at these. Every engagement follows the same pattern because everyone's reading from the same manual. Because the manual works! Until it doesn't. Pete leaned back in his chair, which creaked ominously. Then what? The integration had an unexpected side effect. Human attitudes proved contagious. Zek started cracking jokes under fire. Terrible ones that his translator mangled into incomprehensibility. But the attempt mattered. Melody's pilots began adopting human flight chatter, filling the combat channels with creative profanity in 6 languages. Did that Regari pilot just call his targeting computer a shit-sucking son of a recycler? The flight coordinator asked. Blame Cassie, Cal said. She's been running language exchanges. I'm expanding their vocabulary, Cassie protested. Cultural exchange. You taught them ass badger. That's culture. Most disturbing to traditional military minds, the rigid separation between species began breaking down. Meal times became fixed affairs. Training groups reorganized based on specialty rather than species. A hegemony traditionalist complained about dissolution of proper order and found himself facing a united front of human and alien soldiers who discovered their common ground. They were all getting shot at by the same people. Graduation brought deployment orders and a new designation, Irregular Reconnaissance Unit 7, attached to the 43rd Combined Arms Battalion. Velen, promoted for his innovative recruiting methods, watched them board the transport. Proud of us? Tank asked, clapping him on the shoulder hard enough to leave bruises. I'm terrified of what I've unleashed, Velen admitted. Good. Means you're learning. The Tantalus sector embodied everything wrong with the war. 2 fleets locked in orbital stalemate above a worthless rock, grinding through soldiers to hold positions that changed hands daily. The 43rd Battalion's commanding officer, Colonel Brightscale, achieved the impressive feat of being both incompetent and arrogant about it. Irregular unit? He studied them through eyes that had never seen actual combat. You'll provide the reconnaissance and other duties as required. Translation: expendable. Their first mission sent them into the Broken Ridge sector. Volcanic glass sharp enough to shred standard equipment, thermal vents that played havoc with sensors, and visibility measured in yards on a good day. Perfect spot for an ambush, Lisa observed, taking point with the easy confidence of someone who'd grown up navigating asteroid mining claims by dead reckoning. Huh? Sensors show nothing, their hegemony liaison reported. Sensors can't see through their own arse in this mess. She held up a hand, studying patterns in the volcanic ash. But funny thing about people, they always disturb the ground when they walk, even when they're careful. 3 hours later, they found the Chorus forward base. 2 companies of troops, heavy weapons, and enough supplies for a major offensive. All invisible to standard sensors, but Lisa had noticed how the ash patterns didn't match the wind direction. Outstanding work, Brightscale said when they reported back. However, this doesn't match our simulation projections. The enemy has no presence there. They're right fucking there, Rosa interrupted. We've got video. Language, soldier, and your video could be misinterpreted data artifacts. Tank stepped forward. Permission to verify with a quick raid, sir. Denied, and you're on report for insubordination. Suggesting unauthorized operations goes against regulation. The Chorus attacked exactly where the humans had predicted, exactly when they'd said they would. The defensive line crumbled within minutes. Brightscale's simulation-approved positions might as well have had targeting beacons attached. The aliens poured through gaps that existed because nobody had bothered to check if the terrain matched the tactical maps from 6 months ago. "Fall back to secondary positions!" Brightscale screamed over comms. "What secondary positions?" someone shouted back. "They're already there!" Unit 7 refused to retreat. "You heard the order," Zek said, plasma scarring the air above their makeshift barricade. "Order stupid." Tank fed another belt into his appropriated heavy weapon. The power coupling sparked. Yuki's field modification to override the rate limiter. "We hold here, or they roll up the entire flank." They turned a supply depot into a fortress. Crates became cover. Mining charges became bombs. The depot's own loading equipment became mobile shields. Tank and Zek held the main approach, their different styles merging into something brutally effective. Tank's human durability let him stay exposed longer, drawing fire. Zek's superior thermal vision picked out targets Tank couldn't see. "Hostile armor, bearing 270. "I see it. Rosa, demo charge. Already on it." The twins took their fighters through the volcanic vents, a maneuver their instructor had explicitly forbidden as suicidal and unachievable. Turned out it was only mostly suicidal. They emerged behind enemy lines, dumping ordnance on positions that thought they were safe. "Shit! Shit! Beautiful fucking shit!" Melody's voice crackled through the comms as she followed them through. Her drone's enhanced reflexes the only thing keeping her from becoming a volcanic smear. "Cal, you magnificent bastard! That was insane!" "Thanks, Casey. She calculated the thermal updrafts." "While flying? I'm multi-talented." Yuki's masterwork came when she realized the volcanic vents weren't random. The whole valley sat on a predictable geothermic system. "Pete, I need 3 shots. Exact coordinates coming through. You want me to shoot the ground?" "Trust me." He did. 3 anti-material rounds punched through the volcanic crust at the exact point she'd marked. The resulting steam explosion cooked 3 enemy tanks in their own armor. "Holy shit," Pete whispered. "How did you—" "Physics is physics. Pressure is pressure. Everything else is just scale." Rosa turned triage into a combat multiplier. She saved lives with one hand while returning fire with the other, earning the nickname Combat Medic, as if the combination was unusual instead of necessary. Her patients included a chorus soldier who'd surrendered after taking shrapnel. "This violates the Articles of War," the alien wheezed through its translator. "Shut up and let me save your life," Rosa snapped, packing the wound. "You can file a complaint later." Pete's sniper fire became psychological warfare. Officers learned to stay low. Commanders stopped giving orders from exposed positions. The attack stalled not from lack of troops, but lack of anyone willing to lead them. "That's 16, Lisa reported, spotting for him. 17. You missed the lieutenant." "That was a lieutenant?" "Looked like a private to me." "They all look like privates when they're trying not to get shot." The line held, barely, expensively, but it held. In the aftermath, Unit 7 received no commendations. Instead, they got citations for failure to follow retreat directives, unauthorized tactical modifications, and conduct unbecoming. "Conduct unbecoming?" Rosa stared at the report. "I saved 6 lives!" "And they're writing me up for improper triage procedures." This became the pattern. Humans identified problems. Command ignored them. Disasters unfolded. Humans fixed them. Command claimed credit while writing them up for violations. 3 months in, the war had devolved into a bloody stalemate measured in meters and corpses. During a night watch, Pete tracked enemy positions through his scope. Not to shoot. Ammunition was too precious to waste, but out of morbid curiosity. A chorus soldier struggled with a jammed weapon, all its arms shaking with the same frustrated movements Pete had made 100 times. The universal dance of, "Work, you piece of shit!" "What are you looking at?" Lisa asked, settling beside him. "Nothing." He shifted his scope. "You ever wonder what they're thinking over there?" "Probably the same thing we are. When does this end?" Another night, Lisa watched enemy soldiers passing something around. Letters from home, maybe photos. One broke down, its body racked with a grief that needed no translation. "We're not supposed to see that," she said quietly. "See word?" Tank asked, joining them. "That they're people." "Always knew that." Tank's voice carried no judgment. "Doesn't change anything. Still gotta survive." "Yeah, but..." Lisa struggled for words. "Makes it harder, doesn't it?" "Everything worth doing is hard." The humans coped through gallows humor and mechanical incompetence. Tank led salvage operations that kept their equipment functional, while requisitions vanished into bureaucratic black holes. Yuki's modification spread through the battalion as soldiers traded favors for gear that actually worked. "That's my 53rd citation," she announced proudly. "Think I'll break 100? "Definitely," Kel said. "Speaking of breaking regulations, who wants moonshine?" The still the twins had constructed from medical equipment and salvaged parts produced alcohol that could strip paint or make the war bearable, depending on dosage. Even Zek had developed a taste for it, though his species' metabolism required careful dilution. "This is poison," he said, taking another sip. "Yep," Cassie agreed. "Good poison, though." "The best poison," he agreed solemnly. Rose's medical cross-training created an unofficial network spanning both armies. Medics shared supplies, techniques, and humor across no man's land. All blood wets the ground just the same. The breaking point came with Firebase Novum. Brightscale ordered a frontal assault across 600 yards of open ground against fortified positions. The map table showed neat arrows advancing in perfect formation. Reality would involve hundreds of soldiers running into preset kill zones. "No!" Tank's voice carried the kind of finality that ended conversations. "Excuse me?" Brightscale's scaled skin flushed, his species equivalent of rage. "I said no. That's not an assault. That's suicide with extra steps." "You dare refuse a direct order?" "Yes." The standoff might have ended with executions, but Melody's frantic voice cut through. "Hostile reinforcements, bearing 190. Time to contact 19 minutes. In the chaos of repositioning, the assault was postponed indefinitely. Nobody mentioned that Unit 7 had saved hundreds of lives through simple refusal. That night, human and alien soldiers shared contraband, alcohol, and stories. Someone mentioned Harmony Day, a religious celebration both sides observed, commemorating an ancient peace treaty 3 days away. "You know what would be really stupid?" Pete said, staring into his cup of paint-thinner moonshine. "What?" Rosa asked. "Ceasefire. Just for one day. Honor the dead without adding to them." "That's..." Zek paused. "Actually not the worst idea you've had. Thanks for the ringing endorsement." "It'll never work," Melody said. "Command would..." "Fuck command." Cassie's pronouncement carried the weight of divine judgment. "When's the last time they made a decision that didn't get people killed?" Through Rose's medic network, word spread, quietly, carefully, soldier to soldier, medic to medic. The message reached enemy lines and found ears tired of dying for worthless ground. Against all odds, they agreed. Harmony Day dawned silent. No artillery, no airstrikes, no rattling small arms fire. The absence of violence felt louder than any barrage. Soldiers emerged from trenches like ghosts. The dead lay in no man's land, some for weeks, bones bleaching in the toxic sun. Both sides worked together to recover them. Tank helped a chorus soldier carry his clutched brother's body. The corpse weighed almost nothing, desiccated by heat and time, but the living soldier struggled as if bearing the weight of worlds. He loved to sing, the translator rendered in its flat voice. Always singing. Drove everyone crazy. Had a friend like that, Tank said. Wouldn't shut up. Miss it now. They laid the body with others awaiting burial. The chorus soldier produced a small chime of faceted glass and rang it 3 times. Some kind of funeral rite. Tank stood quietly until it was done. Melody sang funeral songs that transcended language. Her natural voice, unfiltered by translators, carried notes human throats could not produce. It didn't matter. Grief sounded the same in any language. Rosa worked alongside enemy medics, trading supplies and techniques. "This antibiotic's more effective for your biology," she told a chorus medic, handing over precious vials. "Save it for the bad cases." "Why help us?" the medic asked. "Tomorrow we'll be shooting at each other again." "Today we're not. Today's all we've got." The twins shared their moonshine with enemy pilots, comparing notes on fighter modifications, languages mixed, hand-sketched maneuvers in the dirt, and for a few hours they were just people who flew. "Your proposal for thrust vectoring is insane," a chorus pilot said. "Insane's just another word for innovative," Kel replied. "But sometimes it's just insane," Cassie added. "But it works, so who cares?" For 24 hours the war stopped. Soldiers ate together, shared pictures of home, played improvised games with rules nobody quite understood. Humans learned chorus funeral rites. Chorus soldiers learned human card games. Everyone learned that enemy rations tasted just as shit as their own. Then Command found out.
"What the hell were you thinking?"
Bright Scale's roar could probably be heard in orbit. Certainly everyone in the command bunker heard it. Unit 7 stood at attention, spine straight despite exhaustion. "Thinking we didn't want to kill anyone on a holy day," Pete said mildly.
"You fraternized with the enemy, shared military supplies, compromised operational security."
"We buried the dead," Rosa corrected. "Unless that's against regulations too."
"Your actions constitute treason, dereliction of duty, conduction unbecoming of soldiers of the hegemony."
Brightscale's lower arms trembled with rage.
"The penalty is death. Immediate execution as an example to others who might question the glorious necessity of this war."
On the chorus side of the lines, General Cadence 12 delivered a similar verdict. Different language, same result. The soldiers who dared suggest peace were to be shot at dawn. But after sharing meals and burying the dead together, the soldiers couldn't stomach executing those who'd shown mercy. The careful segregation between us and them had cracked. When Zek received orders to join the firing squad, he did something he never thought he could. "No."
"What?"
The political officer stared.
"I said no. Executing soldiers for showing mercy violates every principle of honor my people hold."
His thermal vision locked onto the officer's face.
"You want them dead? Pull the trigger yourself."
Across both armies, similar rebellion sparked. Melody's pilots locked down their fighters. Hegemony guards discovered urgent maintenance needs that kept them from their posts. A chorus sergeant major developed sudden, inexplicable deafness when ordered to prepare the execution ground. That night, Zek led a raid on the military prison. Guards stepped aside. Some saluted. The humans emerged to find not just their unit, but hundreds of soldiers ready to follow. "This is insane," Tank said. "We don't have a plan. We don't have supplies. We don't even have a destination." "We have weapons," a chorus engineer pointed out. "We have ships. We have the element of surprise." "That's not a plan." That's a wish list. It's more than Command ever gave us, someone shouted from the back, and that, ultimately, decided it. The mutiny spread like fire through dry glass. Soldiers who'd bled together refused to keep bleeding for officers who saw them as numbers. The twins led fighter squadrons that grounded command fleets through the simple expedient of parking armed fighters on launch tubes. "You can't do this!" a fleet commander screamed over comms. "Doing it anyway," Cassie replied cheerfully. "Funny how that works." Yuki's network of engineers took control of communication systems. Decades of military incompetence, casually archived for training purposes, suddenly broadcast on every frequency. Casualty reports that didn't match public statements. Orders that sent thousands to die for objectives, abandoned hours later. Supply manifests showing luxury goods for officers, while frontline troops starved. "Jesus," Pete muttered, reading through the files. "They weren't even trained to hate it." "Why would they?" Lisa asked. "Who was going to stop them?" "Us, apparently." Rosa's medics declared every field hospital neutral ground. They treat anyone, regardless of uniform, and shoot anyone who tried to stop them. This policy was tested exactly once. After that, everyone understood the medics were not bluffing. Within 48 hours, both command structures collapsed. Brightscale fled in a personal yacht, abandoning even the pretense of leadership. General Cadence 12 retreated to Chorus Space, declaring the entire sector contaminated by human influence, which left several thousand soldiers standing around on a worthless rock, asking the obvious question, "Now what?" "We could go home," someone suggested. "To what?" a Chorus soldier asked. "Court-martial? Execution? My family think I'm a traitor." "We could keep fighting," another voice offered half-heartedly. "For who? Against what?" It was Lisa, youngest of the humans, who suggested the obvious. "We're already here. We've already bled for this rock. Might as well make something of it." "Make what?" Zek asked. "I don't know. Something better than what we had." The free colony of Tantalus began as a joke that became real through sheer momentum. Soldiers who spent months destroying started building. Bunkers became homes. Weapons became tools. The rigid separation between species dissolved into neighborhoods organized by preference and practicality. Tank led construction crews that mixed human stubbornness with alien expertise. Hegemony soldiers knew elegant engineering. Humans knew how to make things work with spit and prayer. Together they built infrastructure that was both beautiful and functional. "This is completely against regulation," a hegemony architect said, watching humans weld salvaged armor into housing frames. "Regulations are why we're here in the first place," Tank replied. "You got a better idea?" The architect considered this. "Make the worlds cleaner. If we're breaking rules, might as well break them artistically." Yuki designed power systems that weren't supposed to work. Hegemony technology wasn't meant to interface with Chorus systems, and neither were designed for human ham-fisted modifications. She made them work anyway, through pure spite and engineering brilliance. "How?" a Chorus tech demanded, staring at a repurposed battleship fusion plant that combined 3 incompatible technologies. "Easy," Yuki said. "I ignored everyone who said it couldn't be done." The twins established shipping routes with the pilots from both fleets. Smuggling supplies past blockades became an art form. Official manifests showed empty space. Reality showed food, medicine, and families brave enough to join their soldier relatives. "You can't just fly through an interdiction zone," a former fleet officer protested. "Sure you can," Cal said. "Watch." They did it by being too stupid to stop. When patrols appeared, they'd broadcast on open channels. "Just heading to Tantalus, you know. The colony that doesn't exist. In the sector nobody's supposed to be in. Want some coffee? We've got real beans." Most patrols decided they had urgent business elsewhere. Rosa and Doc McCoyan built Tantalus General Hospital in a converted maintenance bay. The old vet had been one of the first to answer a call for skilled civilians, arriving on a Tillerson-piloted smuggler ship with a crate of surprisingly sophisticated medical equipment. The sign out front read, "All species, no exceptions. Don't be an arsehole." It became the most advanced trauma center in 3 sectors, through the simple expedient of actually treating people instead of filling out forms. A human doctor, a veterinarian, and a chorus field medic walk into a surgical bay, Doc said one day. "What's the punchline?" Rosa asked, elbow deep in a patient. "No punchline. Just Tuesday." Pete started a school because someone had to. Children arrived with the refugee waves. Human kids, alien kids, kids who'd never seen their species interact peacefully. He taught them history from all perspectives, leaving them to draw their own conclusions. "Why did the war start?" a young hegemony student asked. "Officially, border disputes and research allocation." Pete smiled grimly. "Actually, because someone in charge was bored and someone else was greedy." "That's stupid." Yes it is!" Both empires faced the same dilemma. They couldn't attack Tantalus without validating every piece of evidence about their corruption. They couldn't acknowledge it without admitting their armies had mutinied for good reasons. So they did what bureaucracies do best: pretend it didn't exist. Official maps showed the sector as disputed territory, no civilian access. Military briefings mentioned temporary anarchist elements that would naturally disperse. Senators and chorus harmonizers who asked too many questions found themselves reassigned to committees nobody had heard of. Meanwhile, Tantalus grew. Soldiers sent word to their units: there's a place where the war doesn't reach, where merit matters more than species or uniform, where you can build instead of destroy. They came in trickles, then streams, deserters, conscientious objectors, or just soldiers tired of dying for nothing. Each brought skills, perspectives, and the bone-deep exhaustion of useless war. "You know what this place needs?" a new arrival asked. "Wood," Tank said, not looking up from the foundation he was pouring. "A bar." Tank considered this. Yeah, that'd be good." 6 months later, Ben Carter sat in his workshop, a converted tank factory that now produced agricultural equipment. His prosthetic leg rested against the workbench, a masterwork of chorus engineering and human stubbornness. The biomechanical interface still ached sometimes. Phantom pains from the limb he'd lost when a plasma conduit exploded during the revolution's chaotic first days. Velka entered with tea, clicking in amusement as she read over his shoulder. She was brilliant, beautiful, and told jokes so bad they transcended species barriers to achieve universal awfulness. "You're leaving out the best parts," she said. "Like what?" "Like how you courted me by bleeding all over my workshop and making terrible puns." "They weren't terrible. They were sophisticated wordplay." "You asked if I came here often while I was attaching your femoral bypass. And you said only when humans insist on leaking everywhere, so who's really the romantic?" She laughed, a sound like wind chimes in a thunderstorm. Her upper arms wrapped around his shoulders, while her lower hands corrected his spelling. Their child would arrive soon, a biological marvel that Tantalus's doctors had made possible through sheer determination and creative genetics. "Tell them about the others," Valka suggested. So he did, about Tank and Melody's flight school, where young pilots learned that coming home alive mattered more than kill counts. About Yuki's engineering guild, where innovation was the only currency that mattered. About Rosa and Doc's medical exchange program, training healers who saw patients as people, not problems. He wrote about Lisa's exploration corps, mapping new worlds for the flood of refugees. About Pete's school, where children learned history was complex and peace was harder than war, but worth it. About the Tillerson Twins Shipping Company, whose motto was, "We deliver, physics be damned." Even Velen had found his place, serving as Tantalus's unofficial ambassador. His job mostly involved explaining to confused bureaucrats why their soldiers kept disappearing. "They're not deserting," he'd say patiently. "They're just choosing to be productive elsewhere. Have you considered offering better working conditions than certain deaths?" Outside, the double sunrise painted the landscape in shades of hope. Children played in streets that had been battlefields. Markets sold goods in languages that had only ever been heard in opposition. A hegemony construction crew argued with chorus engineered about the best way to run power lines while humans helpfully suggested they were both wrong. It wasn't perfect. Nothing ever was. But it was theirs, built from the ashes of a war that had asked for reinforcements and gotten something else entirely. They'd asked for soldiers. What they got were humans, and humans, it turned out, were very bad at following orders.